Hi there. My name's Russ Ketchum. I lead product management for Google Analytics for Firebase. And it's great to be back with you at I/O for another year to talk about mobile apps and analytics. So as users, with each passing day, apps become more embedded into the fabric of our lives. And for developers, this creates an incredible opportunity just for how embedded these apps have become. But with this opportunity, there's also a catch, because users are becoming more sophisticated, and their expectations keep getting higher and higher. And with Google Analytics, we're remained committed to app developers to help you gain insights into what's happening inside your apps so that you can learn from these user behaviors and ultimately build a better app. Now, for those of you that are keeping score at home, last year we introduced what we called project-level reporting. And so project-level reporting was a huge upgrade for Google Analytics for Firebase. And it allowed you to combine the data from the apps inside a given Firebase project and create a holistic view of what's happening cross-platform inside those apps. Now, as powerful as that was, something that we didn't really get into last year is actually how we enabled project-level reporting, rather. So we didn't look at it as a one-off feature, but instead, we took it as an opportunity to build an entirely new analytics engine, an engine that is significantly more powerful. And then when we launched project-level reporting, we actually upgraded all of our existing customers to this new engine in place. And so now that we have this new engine, we're starting to roll out an entirely new class of capabilities that was previously impossible. And these new capabilities make analytics significantly more flexible and more actionable than it's ever been before. And so in a moment, I'm going to invite Steve and Alyssa on stage to show just a little bit of what's possible. But before I do, I also want to take a step back and remind everyone that first and foremost, we built Google Analytics for Firebase to be easy and intuitive, and for it to work right out of the box. So all you do is simply add the Firebase SDK to your app, and the dashboard that you're seeing a screenshot of now lights up and starts to provide a ton of insight. And then it also provides you with pointers on how you can go deeper and really benefit from the free and unlimited event reporting. And it's that way that analytics is there with you throughout the entire life cycle of your app. Whether you're just getting started, building your app, whether you're focused on growth and engagement, or if you're fine-tuning one of your monetization models, analytics is there with you across that journey. And now, thanks to our new engine, it's more powerful and more actionable than ever. And so with that, I'd like to invite Steve on stage, and he's going to show you some of the latest. Steve?
Thank you, Russ. Good evening. My name is Steve, and I'm the PM lead for Google Analytics for Firebase. I'll be joined in a bit by Alyssa, and we have the privilege of sharing with you 3 new game-changing features for analytics, built by our awesome engineering team, which is literally down the street from here today. Now, if you caught the What's New in Firebase session earlier, you would have seen a preview of a couple of these, and we're going to go a lot deeper in both of those. But we're also going to be showing you, unveiling a third huge feature, which is going to be announced today on stage that you don't want to miss. So the first feature I want to chat about is one that's going to allow you to dive deeper into the data that you're collecting already. We, as an analytics product, will pride ourselves in helping you make sense and get insights out of that data. So with that, first up, I'm pleased to announce the launch of enhanced filters. Starting today, you can filter your analytics reports using any combination of the user dimensions that you're collecting. So when you're looking at a report, you can focus it to look at users on a specific platform, on specific devices, using just the latest version of your app, who are members of specific audiences, and who have specific user property values, all in a single filter. This is a huge boost in the flexibility of the product, and we believe will give you the ability to dive deeper into your data to generate these insights. So I'm eager to show this off, so let's dive into a Firebase project to do it. Today we're going to take a look at Transworld Endless Skater. This is a game that I developed before coming to Google for iOS and Android. It's basically a skateboarding take on the runner genre of games. where players do a 90-second run to try to score as many points as they can. Now, like a lot of games, Skate has a tutorial, which is meant to ease the player into the gameplay, teach them the controls, which are quite complex, and set them up for success once they've done that. But from looking at the data, we've noticed from looking at our onboarding funnel that a lot of players are starting the tutorial but never completing it. They might be the types that don't like reading the manual, or maybe they feel like they've already gotten a hang of it, but for whatever reason, they're not completing the tutorial. And my concern is that they perhaps haven't learned all the controls and aren't being set up for success. And if they're not scoring as highly as we want them to, then they're not advancing as quickly as we want them to, they might get frustrated and eventually churn. So first I want to confirm that hunch that completing the tutorial does actually increase your score in our game. So let's switch to the demo now and take a look at the data. So we're looking here at the event detail report for the level end event in Skate. This is an event that I log at the end of each player's run. Again, each run is about 90 seconds. And I also log a parameter called total score to indicate the player's score. So overall, in the last 7 days, the average total score is about 46,000 points. Now, I want to apply a filter to make sure we're looking at just data from the latest version of our app, because we've been making changes in various versions. So I'm going to apply a filter to look at just these two versions, which are the latest on iOS and Android, respectively. So it stayed stable at about 46,000, so that's good. Next, we're looking at scores from all the users, but I want to focus on just the new users and understand what the impact of scores for new users is in completing the tutorial. So scrolling down here, there is a user property called new and established. New users are going to be those users who've been playing for less than 7 days. So I'm going to apply that as a filter. So now we have new users who are on the latest versions of the app. You can see that it dropped from 46 to about 36,000 on average, which makes sense. They're just getting the hang of the game and learning how to play. But now I want to see, does that 36,000 change when we look at new users who've completed the tutorial? So recently I created an audience called tutorial completers that I'll apply as a filter here. And we're looking at the intersection of new users on the latest version who have completed the tutorial. And sure enough, their total score did jump from 36,000 to 40,000. So that's significant, an increase of about 8% in their score from completing the tutorial. So when I stumbled across this, I was curious if this would actually continue, this pattern would continue as players got more mature in the game. So let's take a look at established players to see if that pattern persists. So clicking on the user properties again, I go down to established. Again, these are users who have been in my app for 7 days or more. And as you might expect, they score significantly higher than the new users. So 66,000 points is the new baseline. And now let's apply that audience again, the tutorial completers, to see what happens to that 66,000. And it jumps to 74,000. So not only does the pattern continue, but it actually accelerates. So it seems that even for players who are more mature and have been playing the game longer, they're missing out on some things that we teach them in the tutorial that could help them score a lot more. So at this point, I'm satisfied. I've confirmed my hunch that completing the tutorial does have a positive impact on user scores. But just to show you a little bit more of the flexibility of this filter, keep in mind you can filter this further to look at users on a specific platform or device model or any of your other user properties such as age or gender, what level they played, if they're using gamepad. We've removed the limits on the combination of filters that you can apply to our reports. Okay, so let's switch back to the slides, please. So armed with this new insight, I feel compelled to act. On the one hand, the data does indicate that when users complete the tutorial, they score higher, and so that's a good thing. That means the tutorial is actually doing its job and working. But on the other hand, I have this other data point which shows that a lot of users who start the tutorial don't actually go on to complete it. And that's not good because, as I mentioned, the game sort of assumes that you're going to make progress at a certain rate, and they won't be unlocking new things and having fun, and they might eventually churn out. So I really want to get these tutorial abandoners to go back and complete the tutorial. But how do I connect the dots between that desire and the outcome that I want? That's where analytics audiences enter the picture. Audiences allow you to group users based on their observed behavior. So in this case, tutorial abandonment. And then you can engage those users with a combination of personalization of your app using Firebase Remote Config, or re-engagement using Firebase Cloud Messaging, or the brand new app campaigns for engagement from Google Ads. And to help you create the perfect audiences for this engagement, we're proud to announce the launch of our brand new powerful audience builder. So armed with the new core analytics engine that you heard Russ mention, we supercharged our audience system, adding a ton of new capabilities and wrapped in a beautiful new user interface for the audience builder. And the result is a system that's powerful and flexible, but still intuitive and accessible. And it makes it really easy to go from that insight to the action you want to take. So let's dive back into Firebase now so we can get my users to come back and complete the tutorial right here on stage. Can you switch back to the demo, please? So we're looking at the audiences table in Firebase. You can find that here in the left nav under the analytics section. When I click on New Audience, this is going to bring up the brand new landing page for our audience system. Here you can elect to create a new audience from scratch, or we recommend that you take a look at the audience suggestions we're making for you, as well as the templates we've put together for some pretty common types of audiences that our customers might want to create. Take note of this. There's a games category here of suggestions. How does it know that Transroad Endless Skater is a game? We know that now because we're pulling in your App Store category into analytics so that we can make the most relevant suggestions to you. So Transroad Endless Skater is registered as a game, and we bring that in, and we suggest a number of different types of audiences that games might typically want to create. Notice here there's one called Tutorial Finishers. From the first demo of Enhanced Filters, when I applied that Tutorial Completers audience, that was created using this template. Let me show you what that looks like. So when I click on a suggestion, it brings up the new audience builder user interface and actually fills in a lot of the fields for me to get me started. Literally, I could click Save, and this audience would be created for me. But let's take a closer look to see how it's composed. This audience is set up to include users who log the tutorial complete event. Pretty simple. This is as bare bones as it gets. So as long as my app is logging tutorial complete, and when I save this audience, then users will start populating this audience who have logged that event. If you don't know if that event is being logged, you can head over to the events table in analytics. That shows you a list of all the events that you're logging currently, but something new that we added is this section up at the top. We've always made recommendations of the events that you should log in our Help Center, but now we want to bring those recommendations front and center to you so you can get the most value out of the product. And here we're recommending events that you should generally be logging, but also events that games should be logging. And these are coordinated with our suggested audiences as well. By clicking on these, you'll actually be shown code snippets for any of the languages you can use Firebase Analytics with. So if you're the developer, you can copy the snippet and paste it directly into your code. Or you can copy and paste it into an email and send it to your engineers so they can add it. And then you've created the audience, and if they've done their job when your app is published, that audience will now start being published or populated. Okay, so let's go back to the task at hand, which is to re-engage my tutorial abandoners and get them to come back and complete the tutorial. That starts by creating an audience. Scrolling down the list again, you'll see this tutorial abandoners one, which sounds right. It says users that did not complete the tutorial. Clicking on that brings up the template filled out for me again. And the way that it's set up logically is this. We want to start by including all the users who log tutorial begin, and then exclude users who log tutorial complete. What that leaves us with is just that set of users that started the tutorial but did not complete it. Note one more thing here as well, that I've chosen to permanently exclude those users. I could have chosen to temporarily exclude them, but I want to consider someone to not be an abandoner if they've ever completed the tutorial, even if they start it again. Second thing to note here is this neat card on the right, which is this summary card. This is so handy. As you're creating an audience, and if you're wondering if it's valid, if it's going to start populating with users, this card on the right will show you a preview of how many users meet the criteria that you specified based on the last 30 days worth of your analytics data. So here you can see that 6,200 users met the inclusion criteria, and 3,800 met the exclusion criteria, leaving about 2,400 users who fit into this model of tutorial abandoners. And when I save this audience, what will happen is that it will publish the audience to both Google Ads to be used for engagement, as well as to Firebase to be used by multiple features. And as events are being collected by our backend, in real time, evaluation is being done on this audience to see if users meet this criteria. And qualifying members, user members, are published to their destinations in ads and in Firebase. And what's more, we also go the extra mile of pre-populating that user list in ads based on your last 30 days of data. So these audiences are as actionable as we can make them. We put a high premium on the freshness of them because that makes them more actionable for you and for your growth teams. So I've already actually created this audience, so I'm going to back out of this one. And now that it's created, what we wanted to do was engage these users. So I'm going to connect that dot for you by going over to Firebase Cloud Messaging. We have an awesome integration with Cloud Messaging, whereby you can send your notifications to users who are in a certain analytics audience. So I'm going to do one of those right now. I'm going to create a notification, and I'm going to say to my users, these abandoners, complete the tutorial to increase your score, which we now know to be reasonably true, right? Next, we set up the targeting. Why don't we start by targeting the Android versions of my app, and to only specifically target users in the tutorial quitters audience that I created. Next, we set up the scheduling. I could send this now. It's sort of a one-off to target these users. But then, as the audience accumulates users day after day, I'd have to come in here and do that all the time. So what I'm going to do is schedule this to run on a recurring basis. I'll have it run every day. But I don't want to spam users, because then they might uninstall rather than come back and complete the tutorial. So it's set up to only send once per user. So what happens is, on a daily basis at noon, any users who are new to the audience will get a push notification reminding them to come back and complete the tutorial. Next, I'm going to state the goal of this campaign, which is literally to get users to log the tutorial complete event. So there's a natural funnel from notification sent to notification open to tutorial complete, and we can see what the response rate was. And with that, I can review it and publish it. Should I do it? I'll just do it. All right. So that's it. The campaign was successfully saved. So that was pretty easy. In just a few minutes, I went from diving into my data on a hunch, produced an insight, had an idea for re-engagement, setting it up so that it's going to be, on a recurring basis, engaging the users that I was concerned about. Really neat and really easy, so I want to do a couple more of these, just so you get an idea of the range of things that you can do with the audience builder. Okay. So for this next one, the scenario is Skate has two themed levels. There's a school-themed level and a rooftops level. Now, each time you do a run in Skate, we actually randomly generate the terrain. So you never really play the same experience twice. But the experience can get a little stale because the environment's not really changing. So just imagine, if you will, that I had some extra time in my hands and we created a third level called the Embarcadero. And what I want to do now is get the message out there that a new level is available. But rather than blasting this out to just absolutely everyone who's ever played the game, I want to target it at users who have unlocked all of the current content, because they're more likely to be the ones that are clamoring for new content. So I'm going to create a custom audience for this one. And I'll call them Rooftops Unlockers. And that'll be users who have unlocked the rooftops level. Now comes the time we have to think about how you would actually define this. Well, I actually have a user property called last level. And every time the player executes a run, I just set a user property value to be either school or rooftops or the tutorial. So I'm going to say that last level contains the rooftops, which is the second level. And I see that 761 users meet this criteria based on the last 30 days of data. However, bear in mind that you can actually go back and forth between levels. So some of the users who unlocked rooftops have actually gone back to play the school level, and their last level won't be rooftops, it'll be school. But I want to capture them in this audience too, because they've unlocked the rooftops. So what I want is users where last level contains rooftops at any point. And so if our backend sees you collect this user property set to rooftops, it will remember that it was set to rooftops, evaluate that to true, and hold it true. And you can see that it jumped from 700 users qualifying to actually 1,600 users. So it's a good thing I made that change. And so with this audience being created, I can then go over to Google Ads and run an ad campaign to engage these users, get them to come back, and purchase this next level. All right, one last scenario to show off some features here. This one's going to revolve around the power-ups in Skate. Skate has a system of power-ups called boosts, and each time you do a run, you can choose to buy any number of boosts that increase your score, your potential to score in the level. We want to get users to buy more of these boosts, but I don't want to just blast it out to everybody. So what I'm going to do is run a sale on boosts and re-engage users that I believe that boosts have demonstrated their value to those users in the past. So users who have used boosts on one of the runs and got a higher score for it. That's what I want to put the sale in for and engage them to come back and buy boosts. So the challenge is, how do you actually define an audience like that with the data that you're collecting in analytics? So I'll call these boost lovers. And that we're going to include, so instead of a regular condition group, I'm going to use a special one called sequences. I want to have step one of my sequence be when a user completed a run with 0 boosts and didn't get a great score. So they started off somewhat disappointed. So we know now that that's the level end event and the total score parameter that we were looking at initially. And we know that the average score is around 47,000. So let's say that users who scored below average and another parameter that I log, they used no boosts. So they started out relatively disappointed with their run. But then they followed that up with another run. And this time they scored much better. And they did use a boost. So the thinking is that they would correlate their use of a boost with their increased score, which, if you've played the game, is pretty realistic. They really do help you score more. And you can see that there's 181 users in the last 30 days that actually meet this criteria. So that's good. I know I've used a range of scores that's realistic. Otherwise, I might be surprised when this doesn't populate. And then I could save this. And what I want to do, again, is run a sale and engage users from that audience to come back and use that discount. So I had previously created this audience. And the way that I'm going to run my sale is using remote config. I set up my game's virtual economy to be data-driven, driven by these values specified in remote config. You can see here at the top that the cost for boosts is 10 of my virtual currency called cred. But rather than running a global sale and changing it for everybody, I want to change the value only for these boosters to 5 and publish these changes. So now when a user who's in the boosters audience pulls these parameters from remote config's backend, they will get 5 instead of 10 for that. And then, of course, the second half of this, as you've seen before, I can go to cloud messaging and run a campaign to engage these users, let them know about the sale, and to come back and take advantage of it. So we've switched to the slides, please. So there's so many new features here that I've honestly barely scratched the surface. But I hope you get the picture. The new system is extremely flexible in allowing your growth team to get creative in creating the exact audiences that you want to engage that include these users that are really important to you. And as you can see, our new analytics engine is really paying off in spades. But to drive that point even further, I'd like to invite Alyssa onto the stage to take this to the next level. Alyssa?
Thanks, Steve. Hi, everyone. My name is Alyssa Perez, and I'm a product manager on Google Analytics for Firebase. And as you saw with Steve's announcements and demos, there's lots of new ways to go deeper with the current reporting. But at the end of the day, you know your product the best. And many times, you need to access the raw data to perform certain detailed analyses to answer business questions for your title. Now, in the past, BigQuery was your only option. And that is still the best option if you want to combine with data from other sources. But on top of our built-in insights and anomaly detection, we want to empower you to derive your own insights and take action on them. But that means you should be able to quickly access the raw data in analytics itself, right? Well, now you can. I'm excited to introduce a new feature called Analysis. Analysis is an additive experience to the set of capabilities you're already familiar with in Google Analytics. We're starting to lean a bit more into the deep segmentation and analytical capabilities that we're known for. So with this feature, you can explore your data through aggregations and visualizations to answer any business questions that you have. You can create custom views to quickly gather insights about your title's performance, all while at the same time providing you access to the underlying data. It's pretty exciting, right? So how can you access this new feature? As many of you know, you can connect your Firebase project to Google Analytics. And if you haven't done this already, it's easy for you to do within the Google Analytics admin page by creating a new property. And when you do, not only are you going to get the exact same reporting that you're used to in the Firebase console, but you will soon see the link to our new analysis feature in the left navigation bar, like what you see on the slide. But I think I've talked about it enough, so I want to show you analysis in action. Switch to the demo, please. So what we're looking at here is the Firebase console. It's for Skate, the game that Steve introduced earlier, and I'm sure you're all pretty familiar with this UI. Now, Skate, we've already connected to Google Analytics, which unlocks the same reporting simply wrapped in a Google Analytics UI. So I'm going to go back. This is the Firebase dashboard. This is Google Analytics. And if you haven't linked your project, it's really easy to do so in this admin page in the bottom left. And when you do connect your project, you'll unlock the analysis feature here on the left navigation bar. Is everyone ready to see analysis? Yeah? OK, great. So when you click in, you can see there are a few different layouts and visualizations that you can explore your data with, 3 of which are listed here. You have Exploration, which allows you to lay out your data so it's organized and easy to understand. We also have Segment Overlap, which gives you the ability to identify complex segments or audiences that may exist in your title. And we also have the Funnel Analysis. Now, we know everyone was really hungry for this analysis, so now you can create a funnel with any events that you've implemented for your title to understand who's following the flow you've created and who's falling out of line. So let's go through a couple of use cases together. As you can see, I pre-created some that we'll go through, but I first want to highlight what the controls are within analysis. So you can see here on the left all of the controls that you'll have for this feature. We have a date range, segments, dimensions, and metrics. And all of them are very easy and flexible. You can simply click in the plus button, and I can add another metric. Say I'm interested in looking at ad revenue. When I press apply, it's automatically added to the list of metrics I can run an analysis against. But let's actually go through an example. Now, I wanted to do a funnel because I know it's been a big ask from the team. So my goal with this specific funnel is to understand the first-time user experience in Skate. So we all know that you want the user to start a tutorial, but let's actually figure out how many of those users are starting the tutorial, as well as how many are not completing it. So you can see you actually have a lot of control. It doesn't have to be a first-time user experience funnel, you guys. You can choose any events you've implemented. In my case, I started with first open to ensure that I'm looking at all of the first-time users. The next step would be, of those first-time users, who started the tutorial, of those who started, who completed, and then I added level start, because our hope is that if a new user completed the tutorial, they're going to jump back in and continue playing the game. But I can easily add another step. Let's say I want to know how many of those users who started the level completed it, and I can call this level end, since it's nice in there. I can click in, go to the events, and choose the level end event that Steve already talked about. You see the card updated in real time. When I press apply, that fifth step has been added to my funnel. So now let's see what we can actually tease out from Skate's onboarding process. So in a 7-day period, we had about 1,500 new users join Skate. And I can see the drop-off from each step. So 60% of those first-time users never reached step 2 or never started the tutorial. It's pretty high, right? But if we continue on, we can see that for the users who do start, 58% are completing it. Of those who complete it, 75% are starting the level, and almost 90% are completing it. And that's great. That's exactly the flow we intended. But that abandonment rate, or that set of users who never started the tutorial, is really high. And it's a bit concerning, right? Because as we heard from Steve, we want those users to complete the tutorial so they see stronger performance and hopefully stronger engagement. So what I can do directly from analysis is right-click that audience. And I have a few options. Say I want to build an audience and target those users. I'm immediately taken into the audience builder with all of the filters that I had in my analysis. So you can see we're looking at first opens, who never started the tutorial. And I can possibly call this, let's say, new user tutorial skippers. I can save this, and I can track their performance over time, and I can target them, have them go back and take the tutorial. But let's say I don't want to create an audience. I have another option here. It's called View Abandonments. And I'm not going to click it because we do have to protect our users' information. But if you were to click it, a new analysis would pop up called User Exploration. And it would have device ID, stream name. It would even have all of the user activities. So how many sessions they had in this time, how much revenue they generated. And what you can do is directly from that user exploration, download and export the data with a button in the top right. You can export it to Google Sheets or PDF, whatever's going to work for you and your team. So you can see just how easy it is to create a funnel analysis in this feature. Tease out some learnings, create an audience, and even directly export the data, all within analysis. So I want to switch gears to a different type of analysis because I want to highlight exploration. And that's because it allows you to view your data in a few different ways. So you can do a scatter plot, but you can also see, you can do a table, a donut chart, a line trend, and even a geo map if you're interested in exploring your data by market. Now, we're going to do a scatter plot example because I think scatter plots can be really powerful, especially with a period comparison. So the goal of this analysis is to understand if I'm seeing any declines in the engagement from the audiences that I've created in Skate. And we all know if you have an audience for your title, it's likely a very important cohort of users. So what I've done is put the sessions metric on the x-axis, the user engagement on the y-axis, with the assumption that more sessions implies more engagement, right? And that's what the trend is showing us. Now, right now, each dot coordinates to an audience in Skate, but I can easily change that by Xing this out and adding any other dimension. So if you're curious what the performance is by gender, country, you can easily add that in. But I'm going to stick to audience because I know that those are important users that I can re-engage very easily if I see any declines. So let's do a period comparison. I can now click into the date, and I can toggle on this compare to. And analysis will automatically choose the same length of time in the prior period. So in this case, we're doing a week-over-week comparison at the end of March. And when I press OK, the UI is going to update. Now, one thing I love about the period comparison in scatterplot is it's really easy to understand. The empty circle is the prior period, and the arrow shows the direction of movement to the current period, or the solid circle. Now, looking across this scatter plot, we can see a few of the audiences did see declines in engagement. But let's say you're just exploring around. I can highlight a cluster here in the middle, and when I right-click, I have a few options. I can include only this selection, exclude it. I can even create a segment or build an audience directly from the selection I made with an analysis. It's really powerful, right? But let's say I'm just exploring, I'm curious what's happening, so I include only. And you can see 2 of the 3 audiences here have seen declines week over week. And this 18 to 24-year-olds audience saw the largest decline. So now I can start asking myself, why might this be happening? Now, it is the end of March, so maybe there's this sense of seasonality with spring break and 18 to 24-year-olds, you never know. But let's focus in on this audience and actually see if we can figure out if there's another possible driver. So logically, since I'm looking week on week, the next thing that I want to understand is if there were any days that saw fewer active users compared to the prior period. So what I've done is align trending active users, with a filter for the audience 18 to 24-year-olds, all customizable. And what this is telling me is that across the current week versus the prior week, this audience underperforms in terms of active users. But I can also see that anomaly detection is layered into analysis, calling out to me that there was a day in the prior week that saw particularly strong active users. So it very well may be that this is just seasonality, right? But I can take a few actions on this insight. I can either build an audience or create a segment to retarget them, or I can save this view to continue to monitor their performance and ensure that that drop-off doesn't continue. Now, I know this was just 2 quick examples, but hopefully it shows you how easy it is to get in, play with your data, gather some insights, create segments or audiences, and directly export the data in real time. Switch back to the slides, please. So the possibilities are endless with analysis, and there's much more to come with this feature. And we hope you're just as excited about it as we are, because we want you to start using it right away. So we're pleased to announce that the new analysis feature is available in whitelist, and will be rolling out to all of our users this summer. And if you'd like to join our whitelist, visit the bit.ly link on the slide to be added. So now I'd like to invite Russ back on stage to wrap us up.
Thanks, Alyssa and Steve. It was great to see just some of what's possible with our new analytics engine. Whether it's the enhanced filtering and the ability to apply multiple filters in a cumulative way, the new audience builder and seeing how things preview and pre-populate while you're in the process of constructing your audiences, or of course the entirely new analysis section, which allows you to dig deep into your raw data with entirely new techniques such as funnels. These next-gen capabilities really do take the insights and actionability of analytics to a whole new level. And it's our hope that you developers will be able to use these techniques to take your apps to the next level. And so with that, I'd just like to say thank you for coming out and staying late with us. And I hope everyone here enjoys the rest of I/O.